stories. So I did, and I had a ball. By 20, I had dropped out of college to cover the police beat in San Francisco at the CBS All News radio station. By 22, I made the leap back to television, was working as a general assignment reporter at the CBS TV station in New York City. If you happen to be asking yourself, how did I manage all that? Well, I don't know. I asked myself that too. It's possible you're asking what qualifies me for this job. I suppose the answer would be 45 years of experience, but that would be a circular argument, wouldn't it? I would be less than honest if I didn't admit having occasional bouts of imposter syndrome. Take right about now, for example. Right now, someone in this audience is pointing fingers and saying, who vetted this guy? It's a college, did no one tell him it's a university? No doubt I had my share of luck along the way, opportunities presenting themselves at the right moment, and I had great, maybe outsized confidence in my abilities. Some of the best advice I received early on in my career was to be ready for doors to open and be ready to walk through them. I never quite understood what that meant until, lo and behold, doors started to open, eventually leading me to this point in my life, and I stand here at the pinnacle of my profession. But I'm also the product of strong mentors. I can't speak enough about the importance of mentorship. I opened myself up to individuals who saw some promise in me and had no reason to see me fail. When I thought I knew everything, they taught me that I didn't know anything. Many of their voices I hear today when I sit down to do an interview or begin to write a script. The best of teachers, as you know, are like that. You never forget them, and you never forget what they taught you. When a young intern walks into my office and asks for advice, which they do from time to time, I think of my mentors, and I make sure that I'm acting like they would. And so I came to the business, of which I'm being honored now, with no formal training, just really what I could soak up, along with the belief in the promise and importance of journalism, coupled with an endless thirst for answers. Now, to the students here with us today in the audience, please do not misread my fast-track career path as mocking or somehow devaluing your academic path. I came up at a different time with arguably different rules. But right now, the profession, and our audiences need you. They need the fully educated you who takes advantage of every opportunity to learn. Your training, your learning, your willingness to adapt to and embrace change are the skills that ensure that the search for truth and accountability will have committed stewards as we go forward into the future. As I saw for myself today, KU is creating the next generation of journalists at a moment of great challenge in our profession. Fragmented audiences, harsh financial realities, attacks on our legitimacy, which I'll discuss in a few seconds, to name a few. We old-timers still want to believe that news is a public service that should be above profit and loss sheets. But sadly, the reality in many American newsrooms is that coverage decisions are increasingly being made on the question of cost. Not can we cover it, can we afford to cover it? The term news business has never been truer. That, however, may be the hardest battle we'll wage. Folks, journalism as we know it is in a fight for its life, from inside and outside, and that should worry journalists and non-journalists alike. A world without a healthy press is a world where the important questions are not asked or answered, where the powerful operate unchallenged. When I reflect on my 25 years at NBC News, I think of the huge stories that broke during my watch. In my first 5 years at the network, we covered the 2000 Bush-Gore election campaign and vote and the subsequent recount. I can still hear Tim Russert in my ear. Florida, Florida, Florida. There was, of course, 9/11, 2 wars that would follow, and the anthrax attacks, all within a 5-year period. Imagine what it all would have looked like without a free and independent press covering it all, asking the uncomfortable questions. And believe me, there were some doozies in that period of questions that needed to be answered. The existential threats to our profession are real. Retaliation from the government against the press is happening. A sustained campaign to erase facts and history is happening. And the strategy to blame the messengers as an answer to uncomfortable truths is happening. You guys sure you want to do this for a living? Just asking. And yet our response cannot be to fall down the rabbit hole of politics. That's not what we do. We cannot allow ourselves to be cast as partisans. We are best when we keep our opinions to ourselves and the truth and facts front and center. But we do have to be fearless at times. And to the consumers of our work, our audiences, you have to demand the best of us. A reputation for excellence is something that isn't earned one story or award at a time. It comes from a culmination of our work, investigations, features, breaking news, attention to detail. These are the foundations that will lift us up against those who seek to tear us down. But to renew the bond between audiences and the media, to the extent that it may be tarnished, requires a hard look in the mirror sometimes. For our profession to overcome the slings and arrows that have become more commonplace, we have to stop thinking of news as a one-way street where we get to tell you everything and we don't hear from you in return. But we also need engaged audiences that understand what we do, why we do it, and who have a willingness to employ critical thinking. This journey we're on, in many ways, should be a partnership. We must accept that, like so many things of this on-demand era, journalism has been democratized. To be at our most effective, we need to be listening because our viewers, readers, and listeners are exercising their freedom of choice. If we are not dialing into our audiences and acknowledging the shifting landscape around us, then all the accolades in the world are meaningless, and that just won't do. For the past 10 years or so, the journalism profession has existed in a kind of defensive crouch, leaving us to forget sometimes that our most powerful response to attacks on our integrity is the truth, excellence, and fearlessness. I personally believe there will always be an active search for the truth going on out there. I refuse to accept that we are so divided that we are somehow blinded to what is real and true. Our strength as an industry, as a profession, is in finding the answers. Let that be our rally cry as we rise from that defensive crouch and hold truth to power. Lately, there's been a lot of angst in our business over where people are getting their news. Let me plainly say, we shouldn't be judging people who may happen to get their news from TikTok or social media in general. We should instead be asking why. We just might learn something. So how do we tighten bonds with news audiences? Let me throw out a word we don't hear too often: nuance. The subtext that opens new possibilities or demands more critical thinking about a story. The discussion society often overlooks, leaving us further divided beneath a cloak of false certitude. So many judgments on critical issues in our country right now are being made solely on headlines, those enticing attention-grabbing staples of our profession, but that by themselves can be devoid of subtext or nuance, custom-tailored for the cultural shorthand that frames so many of our debates these days. We can and should be fostering healthy debate in our society, using our power of news gathering. I discuss all this through the frame of someone approaching the sunset of their career. I'll be stepping down soon, as you heard, from NBC Nightly News and taking on a larger role at Dateline. And so I look forward to several more years as a working journalist. But I have seen a lot and I've learned a lot. What I know is that journalism is still a noble profession. And I want you to hear that again. It's a noble profession, but one of tremendous responsibility. There's no room for arrogance if we are to succeed in our mission. There is, however, room for compassion, humanity, and respect. I'm often asked what my favorite story is that I've covered, who the most famous person I've interviewed. I'm always trying to think of, let me give them an answer they'll want to hear, somebody they know. So I struggle to come up with that name, but the truth is, the names and faces running through my mind when I'm asked that question are generally not ones that you would know. But their stories impacted me most profoundly. People I met on what was the worst day of their life, like the mother in Uvalde, Texas, recounting to me the last time she saw her daughter alive, dropping her off at Robb Elementary School the day of the massacre. It was an interview we only both struggled barely to get through because of our tears. There was the husband I found in Haiti, digging through the earthquake rubble of his home to recover the body of his wife, pausing briefly to speak to me about his loss. Also seared into my mind, the families we met fleeing Ukraine in the opening days of the war. All these people, and there's so many more like them, taught me about the power of resilience, something I have marveled at for virtually my entire career. The incredible ability of people at their lowest moment in life, burdened by anguish and grief, to get on their feet and manage to put one step in front of the other and move forward to live. I want to thank you again for this amazing honor, and thank you for listening. I'm grateful for your attention, and please continue to support free and independent journalism.